Namaskaram to all. We will start our session. Chaturmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Satatanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasrudan Asheshan Avulsukya Moha Aradidan Jakhana Yo Purva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. We were discussing about the dhadus in detail and their relationship with the doshas to understand more about the ashraya-ashrayi relationship. Now, we will try to understand or discuss something about the malas. Actually, the malas are somewhat less discussed areas. We just go through the descriptions of mala casually and take most of them for granted without further discussions. That is what is happening generally. So I think we will to fill that gap or to make the understanding somewhat clearer, we will go to some of the very basics as well. So if you find some sort of a very fundamental ideas in this discussion, it is deliberate. It is a part of my audio is not clear. Somebody is writing a note that the voice is breaking. Is it so? Can somebody
It's
respond?
clear. It's
Sir, it
clear.
is clear.
Okay, thank you. So I think we will discuss some of the very basics. See, as you all know, mala is anything which has the potential to make a system or environment or substance contaminated or polluted. Mala, Malinikaranadu. So, mala can represent many things: dirt, impurity, waste product, filth, foulness. Many words can be used to explain mala. But in our context, above and over all these descriptions, malas are byproducts of transformations of various types. Definitely, it is important to understand that they have the potential to pollute or contaminate. They have the potential to contaminate, to pollute. Sometimes that can happen in the pradeshika, regional level. Sometimes fully, sarvadehika. The pollution or contamination that they cause can be sometimes regional, sometimes overall, as far as the body is concerned. But that is a potential that remains as a potential, and that potential is not operational when everything is fine, when it is in the optimal or the so-called normal state. This potential is not operating. On the other side, they deliver some very crucial karmas in the sharira. So that is the interesting part. That is why we are not able to brand them outright as polluting agents or filth like that. And as we all know, Shakrit, Mutra and Sveda, these three are the most commonly mentioned or considered malas in routine discussions. So first we will discuss about them. one after the other, and then we will consider the others if it is required. Sometimes when we cover Shakrit Mutra and Sweda and understand the very basics of Mala, the concept of Mala, sometimes I think a very detailed description of the other areas, I think it can be unnecessary. Then we can skip as well. First, we will consider Shakrit. We find Shakrit explained as the Ahara Mala or Anna Mala, which is khara or solid in nature. Khara here just means solid. Basically, I think it represents the Sandra portion. That khara has got the Sandra, Ghana, Nibide, Sandre. These are the word meanings of that khara, Sandre, Nibide. So it shows that dense form or Sandra form. So that is why we say that it is solid in nature. And as we all know, it is the byproduct of the Ahara Pachana in the Koshta. So multiple things are playing behind the formation of this Annamala or Annakitta. We find Pajakapittam explained as doing Sarakittau Vibhajati, isn't it? And about Samanavayu, Samanondaragni Samipasthaha, Tal Sandhukshanaha, Pakvamashaya Dosha Mala Shukrartava Ambuvahasrodo Vichari Tadavalambana Annadharana Pachana Vivechana Kitta Adho Nayanadikriyaha Ashtanga Sangraha. So Sarakittau Vibhajati for Pajakapittam and Kitta Adho that Kitta Adho Nayanadikriyaha for Samanavayu. So Samanavayu and Pachakapitta, or otherwise Pachakapitta and Samanavayu, actively involving in the Ahara Pachana, separate the Sara and Kitta at the end of the whole process. And as we all know, and as we have discussed multiple times, the Sara is taken up into the system for the nourishment of the body, whereas the Kitta is pushed down, Kitta Adho Nayana, to get excreted eventually. So, but that excretion, whether it is completely excreted in a uniform manner, or that is the point where we have to understand the finer aspects of Mala formation, and because this Mala is of two types, which we will discuss later. So, in any case, it is getting excreted eventually. And this Kitta, which is getting pushed down, is not well differentiated. That is the important point. That is one important point. It is an amorphous form. It is a mix of both solids and liquids. And this undifferentiated or amorphous stuff is processed further in the Pakvashaya maybe, or in some other areas which we will discuss, in its movement downturn to get separated into the solid and liquid components. And the solid component, thus separated, subsequently becomes the Shakrit. It becomes the Shakrit. That is the formation of Shakrit. But here one point we should understand, that this is accomplished by or this can be, or this may be accomplished by the Purishadhara Kala with the support of Samanavaya. Purishadhara Kala. Multiple times we have references of Kala. Now, first time we discuss it in that context, the Purishadhara Kala. Panjami Purishadhara Nama. Isn't it? Sa He Andhra Ama Pakvashaya Shrita Koshtandar Undugastham Malam Vibhajati. That is one reference. Forget about the anatomical precision as it is considered in the uh, contemporary anatomic textbooks. But here it is more about a functional territory, a particular region where this Purishadhara Kala is operating with the support of Samanavayu. So the separation of the solid component and further the generation of the Shakrit can be considered as accomplished by Purishadhara Kala. And obviously, there are multiple stages involved, or there can be multiple stages involved in this process in order to regulate the texture, bulk, and form of the excreta, the Shakrit. So, there is a mechanism in place. That is why all these things are happening. And also, we should understand that there is a mechanism in place to store the Shakrit formed to a preset, comfortable, optimal, affordable level of bulk for a peculiar time. That is very important. That is important because that is the critical thing which decides whether the Malinikarana potential of the Mala is going to be operational or not. So that mechanism is also there in place, and this operates in the Malashaya where Apanavayu is the authority. So up to that, it should be well understood. Now, it is true that it has no direct nutritional roles to play, and it is to be excreted. But as we all know, and as we mentioned earlier, this Shakrit is important functionally, especially in terms of its content, bulk, and form. As far as a Vaidya is concerned, it has got uh, importance in multiple domains. We will see some of them. See, for example, the content of Shakrit is determined or influenced at least by the type of food consumed. Very important. The initial processing of the foodstuff by actions like chewing, which is very critical in the Anna Sanghada Kledanam. Then the functional integrity of Grahani, the status of Agni, and the overall environment prevailing in the Koshta, which is influenced by multiple factors, including the status of mind. These are all going to be important as far as the content of the Shakrit is concerned. Now, the bulk is important because when the bulk of Shakrit in the Malashaya is suboptimal or less than the desired, it becomes quite challenging to the extent that the individual finds it difficult even to stand straight. And this observation has led to the attribution of Avashtambha karma to Shakrit. We all know that. Avashtambha means a support or a prop. So that is very important. Similarly, excessive bulk stored or stagnated in the Malashaya can cause both rodha of Vayu and structural irregularities there in the Malashaya, resulting in serious consequences. One point that is worth remembering at this point, this explanation, is the classical example of Udavarta, as explained by Acharya Bhada in Arshoroga Nidana. So as far as Vaidya is concerned, these are very important. As an individual is concerned, these are also very important. Okay. Now, by default, Shakrit is Ruksha and Pindida in its form. This is also important. It is Ruksha and Pindida. Meantime, it has some Sneha or Snigdhada on it, which is quite essential for its movement inside. Otherwise, it will be harmful. It will hurt. It will damage the system. So this Sneha, the presence of this particular Sneha on the bulk of Shakrit is also very important, and it can have two sources. One is the limited source or the primary source, which is from the Kleda Bhava of the Mala itself, the Annakitta itself, which we were seeing earlier, that it is basically an amorphous structure where further division is happening. So some share of that Annakleda is contributing to the Snigdhada over the Ruksha Pindida Shakrit. That is the first source. And the second is, which it can receive maybe on an SOS basis from the kleda of the interior of the Sharira. From the interior of the Sharira. This is operational because there are srodasas operating between Koshtha and the interior of the Sharira. There are srodasas. Of course, we know that there are srodasas which can exchange. These srodasas can exchange sneha to and fro. So here, some sort of as explained by Charaka Acharya, Navad Kumbhad Ivodagam. So that style of an operation may be happening through these srodasas between the Koshtha and the interior of the Sharira. And one point worth discussing here is that, okay, if you look at Charaka Samhita, again, in this part, we will find, see, Pittam Annasya Vinmutram Rasasya tu Kabho Asrujah Pittam Mamsasya Kamala Malasveda tu Medasaha Syat Kittam Kesalom Nastho Asthnoho Madnyaha Sneho Akshibittvajam. So Akshivittvajam, Vit Sneham is explained as the Mala of Majja. Majja. So that seems to be a very categorical statement at that point. But I would prefer to consider it in a different way. I would say that the Malabhava of Majja Dhadu is adding to the Sneha of Shakrit, but it need not be the case fully. Instead, the entire pool of kleda inside the sharira may be contributing in this regard. Majja may be considered as an avadhi, a border, up to all the kleda getting formed inside the sharira in the mala form. Of course, that is also very important. It may be primarily mala form, which extends up to the majja, can be considered as contributing for the vid sneha. That word is vid sneha. So I interpret the explanation of the statement of Charaka Acharya in that way, because that seems to be more sensible. Now, the Ruksha Pindita Shakrit receives a supply of kleda from the interior of Sharira, facilitating its movement down. But sometimes there may be sufficient presence of sneha, but still the movement of Shakrit may not be happening. That is a possibility. And it is an area of interest for a Vaidya. So how can this happen? It may be because of some mechanical obstruction, as it is happening in the case of Arshas. That is a complex samprapti. Arshas can cause this problem, and this problem by some other means can cause Arshas as well. Sometimes this may be a result of habitual vegadharana. That is the twist, both sides. So in such situations, to make the matters worse, the kleda, both sources, that means the inherent part and the one supplied from the internal pool, what will happen when this sort of a habitual stagnation is happening? It goes back to the interior of the sharira, making the sakrit further drier and harder. So there will be an unnecessary bulk of kleda which is getting into the sharira. The original part, which is otherwise supposed to be excreted along with the vit or shakrit as its own share of sneha. And it may be interesting to note here that in such situations where the excretion of shakrit is very less because of the hard and dry stuff and its accumulation, the quantity of urine can be going up. This is because of the extra transfer of kleda back to the interior of the sharira. There are situations explained in such a way. Say, for example, take the Arsha Purva Rupa, where this mechanism is setting in, as told by Acharya Bhada. What is happening there? We will find one statement, Prabhudam Mutram Alpa Vid Ashraddha Adhumakom Lakaha. So, Alpa Vid Prabhudam Mutram. So, Shakrit is getting stagnated, it is dry, it is hard, and it is without that sneha. And where that sneha went, it has went into the interior, making the bulk of the kleda inside bit more than the expected, which reflects in the urine. So, Prabhudam Mutram Alpa Vid. That can happen. In Prameha, the kleda is taken as part of the samprapti. It is not from the koshta. From wherever there is sneha, that will be taken to one particular point, which is that point, vasti. It is just because of this peculiar nature of prameha, we say that vasti masritya kurude pramehan. It does not mean that It is all operated by Vasti, but this forceful traction of Sneha towards the Vasti from all parts of the Sharira is a prime mechanism happening in Prameha. And this happens from the Koshta as well. From the Koshta also, the Sneha is dragged into the Vasti. That happens in Prameha and makes the Koshta further Krura. And that is why we observe Prayena Durviretsyo Himehinaha. So these are all some sort of a important visualization points which will help the Vaidya while he is addressing a clinical situation. Then, dry, hard, and bulky accumulation of Sakrit in the Malashaya can cause another set of serious pathological conditions, including the Udavarta, which we mentioned earlier, creating a series of health issues. Now, the other side is also possible. What is that? Ill-formed, loose, watery stool. This is also a possibility, which is to be assessed to understand the cause behind it. Sometimes it may be the lakshana of some other vyadhis like Atisara, where the mechanism is complex, where that Visram Sayatyadho Abdhadum. So the entire mechanism in the Koshta, starting from the beginning till the end, is distorted there, and the capacity of the system to make a proper flow of events fails. And that is how a vyadhi like Adhisara is manifested. Sometimes it can be due to a localized failure of Grahani. That can happen. Sometimes it can be an effect of certain ahara dravyas. That can happen. And some other times it may be a non-functional or hypofunctional Purishadhara Kala may be the culprit, which attracts unnecessary or unwanted or uncontrolled flow of kleda to the Koshta. Maybe retaining unnecessary liquid portion from the Annamala or taking excess from the inner pool. So the lakshanas also can differ in all these things on a finer observation. So the point here is that a proper understanding of Sakrit in terms of its content, bulk, and form can give important information about the whole process of ahara pachana happening in an individual. So a proper understanding of the Sakrit is something like a printout of multiple tests done inside. Like it may be indicative of a gastroendoscopy. It may be an indicative of an ultrasound done. It may be an indication of a colonoscopy done. It may be an indication or an impression of all other imaging techniques done. So this is becoming a printout of the entire process. Obviously, more functional than structural doesn't mean that it is not at all structural. More functional than structural status of the system of Ahara Pachana. So that much importance is there in the uh, uh, assessment or understanding of Shakrit. And this Shakrit obviously is a niche of Kapha because of the abundant presence of Prithvi in it. So that is about Shakrit. And now we will discuss about Mutra, maybe in our next session. So I hope that it was interesting, and everyone has some food for thought in this idea about Shakrit. So here we conclude. Thank you very much. In our next session, we will think about Mutra. Okay. Vishayam sadhuvrittanam bhadramadamasalinam abhyastakarmanam bhadram bhadram bhadrapyasham. Thank you. Stopping here because I don't find any extra points to discuss in the chat box. Thank you.